Today on the Rock Feed podcast, we are joined by very special guests. My brothers in Five Finger Death Punch are here. We're going to celebrate 20 years of the band. Hard to believe it's been that long. And what does it mean to y'all after 20 years to still be going stronger than ever before?
Well, it's pretty incredible if you think about 20 years. I mean, when you're saying it 20 years, man, oh my God. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. It didn't feel 20 years though. You know, it was pretty, it's a fast forward. It's always fast forward. Just you're right there. Everything is fast. And when you look back, did it feel?
Exactly.
Do you remember anything?
Doesn't it, hopefully it doesn't look like 20 years.
Oh.
Because it doesn't feel like it.
I got to tell you, going back to the beginning, it's so amazing. All three of you have such a fascinating story. You all three, even though you two are not originally from America, you have very much embodied the American dream. Those early days, the origins of the band, talk about how this group came together and this dream became this worldwide reality.
So it's pretty crazy to think 2005 we started this, and the first member, believe it or not, was Nadia from Coal Chamber.
Wow.
Yeah, not many people know that. I started to work with her, but we were very good friends. And but she's more into like gothish style, kind of darker music, and I wanted guitar solos and whatnot. So remained friends, but we kind of split because she wanted to do something else, different style. And I started to recruit the band members, and the first was Jeremy, the drummer, and then it built from there. And the band name came from everybody knows now, the Kung Fu movie. I'm a big martial arts fan. I like old school Kung Fu cinema. And so the 5 exploding, what was that, Lotus Punch or whatever the hell, that just didn't sound good like as a band name. So it was Five Finger Death Punch. So that was the final name. But man, yeah, 05 was
We're
crazy.
here at Zoltan's castle right now. Absolutely incredible property. You come from a communist country. You come from extreme poverty. At some point early on in your life, you decide, I'm going to risk it all. I don't know where I'm going to end up, but I'm going to move to a country that I am not familiar with, and I'm going to pursue my dream. How crazy of a guy do you have to be to want to do that and go across the pond?
Everybody laughed at me. It was an impossible dream. At the time we didn't have passports. We couldn't really go to other countries. So that was still, heavy, deep communism. And so I would tell this to people like, man, I'm going to go to America. I'm going to be in a rock band. I'm going to tour the world. And everybody was like, okay. That's very cute. You're special. It's very cute. Right. So, nobody would believe that. It was an impossible dream. But everything to me was just, one foot after the other and checking, the low boxes. Do all the things I wanted. That it was really that. And I never thought ever that it wouldn't happen.
Right.
So I had that determination that it has to happen. It has to happen. It's kind of the idea of burn the boats. Man, row out so far that you can't turn around. That was the idea.
And so you get there, you move here. I'm assuming you were broke when you came here.
Yes. Man, I lived in some really questionable areas. I can tell you that. So I didn't speak English, right? So start with that. I arrived to America. The Statue of Liberty did mean a lot to me. Yeah. When I saw that the first time, that hit me like, man, I'm in a place now that if I'm lined up in front of a wall, it's going to be probably a photography. Yeah. Not a firing squad. How amazing! I don't want to exaggerate, but it really hit me that, man, I'm in a place now that things are possible. Right. That dreams can come true, really, and you have to work for them. But
I mean, look at where you are now, and Kael, you come into the band, and you're just a small town Kentucky boy.
Yep.
You join this band. They are at that point starting to fire on all cylinders. You've got a couple gold records out. Mm-hmm. How does your life change? First of all, how do you find out? How do you get the opportunity? Hey, this massive rock band wants me to join.
I'm going to give you some background information here that I don't know that you're aware of. So I used to work for the Hard Rock Cafe here in Las Vegas. And in about October of 2010, the old bass player, Matt, came into the Hard Rock when I was working one day. The cocktail waitress walks up to him, says hi. She comes back over. He might have cut this later. I don't know. This is a good story, though. So the cocktail waitress walks over, says hi to him. She comes back over. I was like, oh, you know the guy at the bar? She's like, yeah, it's Matt from Death Punch. He's my neighbor. So I had a big beard back then, as did Matt. So I figured I'd make a beard joke, then go over and break the ice and say hello. It did not turn out that way. So I said, tell him that he's in the big boy beard section and the little boy beard section over there. Figured, a little stupid humor. It'd be funny. She comes back over and she goes, I don't know how to tell you this, but he said he's a rock star and you're still waiting tables. So that was October 2010. I found out in December of 2010 that they were looking for a bass player. So I was immediately like,
Full circle.
I am taking that dude's job.
Oh my God.
Here I am at Zoltan's Castle, celebrating the 20th anniversary of Five Finger Death Punch. I would not have gone after it nearly as hard had he not been like that at the hard day. So that was a day that changed my life, absolutely. So,
Dude, that's a phenomenal story.
Yeah.
That is absolutely hilarious.
You heard it here first because I like you.
Thank you, bro. So, last year you all went out on tour stadiums with Metallica, and that has to be so crazy to realize, like, oh, there's James, there's Lars, there's the fellas, there's Kirk, there's Rob. What was that experience like touring the world with this massive, iconic band?
And any of us can talk about this one. Well, look, Metallica is basically the band. I'm going to say this is my opinion, but probably a lot of people will agree with that. Metallica is sort of the epitome of metal, right? Yeah. If I want to say, like, what is metal? Show me one band what is the description of metal? I would say Metallica, right? And especially with the Black Album, I think they really established that. That's the sound of metal, right? So, and at this point, it's an institution. It's not even a band. It's a historical event that will be in the books forever, right? And every single one of us at one point probably were listening to these albums and were influenced by that, right? I mean, I certainly was.
Same.
Yep. No. Like, what else? No, actually, no.
I didn't really get into metal until like a lot later on because I grew up with like Guns N' Roses and Extreme and instrumental guitar players and stuff like that. So, I always knew that like Metallica and Pantera and stuff existed, but like I didn't really get into that stuff until much later. I think my introduction into metal music was more Killswitch Engage.
Metalcore, hell yeah.
Yeah. So I'd seen like, fucking crying here, sorry. My eyes going, like, I'm not emotional about talking about metal. I just like, oh my God,
really love Killswitch
the day I discovered Killswitch Engage. But no,
they said it was the end of Heartache, but it was the beginning of
That's right, for me.
I think something flew into my eye. Fuck.
He's like really into Killswitch.
It's an emotional.
Yeah. So anyway, I saw
And then Howard left.
All the girls down line. He's sensitive.
Well, actually, funny enough, the first thing I saw was Howard Jones singing "End of Heartache" on, it might have been Scars or some metal channel at the time. And then when I went out to go and buy like the album, thinking, right, I need to find what album this is, and I went and bought. Well, now I know it was their like first record, and it had a completely different singer on it. I'm like, well, I know I've got the right band because I wrote it down. And then, I later realised that, it was the second record that I was watching. But yeah, I didn't really get into like more heavier stuff until then, really. So like I kind of reverse engineered my metal like lineage backwards,
right?
From like modern to where it came from, that kind of thing.
And you as well, your dream is so fascinating too, because you started out as this guitarist, as this guy who obviously very much loves Killswitch Engage, and then you go on, you become this world-renowned guitarist, and then you get the call to step into Five Finger Death Punch, again, at this point, one of the biggest rock and metal bands on the planet. First of all, how do you find out this?
Yeah, well, I had a bit of a like different start than, say, like these guys. I mean, I started doing like tuitional stuff online and that, and YouTube was kind of becoming a thing, and and so like I have a very gradual upward trajectory towards like where I am now. I did like loads of shit jobs working for like insurance companies and Starbucks and McDonald's and all that sort of stuff. And then, in between that, trying to do like pub gigs and, cover bands and stuff like that. And then, I started like doing the instructional stuff, and then started doing my own thing, and then it just sort of like grown. I mean, I've been in a few different bands and stuff like that, but I guess like the online presence was the thing that Zoe had seen, hit me up on Instagram probably about 9 months before, but it wasn't anything to do with Five Finger Death Punch, it was asking me about guitar players for another thing entirely. And I was just like, well, I'm not really doing anything at the moment. Is it something that I'd be interested in? So, you know, we went through that whole thing, and then, you know, we met and started talking and stuff.
I was
and
keeping him close.
well,
I was keeping an eye on him.
this other thing was kind of like what I find out now as a really weird job interview. You know, like, let's just throw him in the studio and see what happens. And, you know, let's just find out, is he a dickhead? Is he not a dickhead? I don't know. Because I'm guessing things were kind of, you know.
Now you can tell it was.
What?
Like, it was a weird.
A job and
Well, no, yeah, because I didn't know until afterwards. And then you know, I get a text message one day saying, yeah, so I might need you to come out on tour with Five Finger Death. You know, like I was like, oh, well, yeah, just to hang out or whatever. And he was just like, no. I need you to learn a bunch of songs, like, you know, I think it was like 17 songs. Right. What's your music retention like? So I was like, yeah, I can do that. Next day I was on my first ever first class flight to London, thinking that Wembley Arena was going to be my first gig with the band. Right. But luckily it wasn't, because I had to do some notes from the crowd just to sort of, you know, when you listen to the records, you don't really know. I mean, obviously, you know, Jason was doing a lot of the leads, and I knew that anyway, but then, like, obviously...
You had to learn all the solos, too.
Yeah, like, all of that stuff. I mean, I knew all the songs in my brain.
Right.
I just never really played them. So half the battle is, you know, knowing how the songs go. And so, yeah, managed to do it. And I think it was like 2 gigs later in Germany or something. It's just like, right, off you go. Don't fuck it up.
And so, he's saying the story, but I literally called him, right? And that's why I was like, hey, how's your music retention? It's like, what do you mean? Like, can you learn 17 songs, like, in 2 days? And he's like, what? Like, well, I might need you, and it will be the Wembley Arena. It's sold out, so you kind of have to really know what you're doing. And I think I heard him drop the phone. So, yeah. Now, imagine that. And you asked about Metallica. So the kid that I was, looking at the Statue of Liberty, right? Coming into America, didn't speak English. I had a Hungarian English dictionary, and I taught myself reading books word by word, translating them, right? And being a big fan of Metallica. And then fast forward, 20 years.
So surreal.
And here we are. I mean, every single one of us had, like Andy. The reason I knew Andy and about Andy, because he was already the guitar hero. He's crying and being a little bit,
a little bit shy.
A little bit shy, but I mean, he was one of the best.
Yeah.
Like, so we were every guitar player at least in metal, hard rock, kind of aware of who's the top guys. He was one of them, right? And it turns out that I was talking about him to Charlie, or drummer. And Charlie was like, oh, yeah, I know Andy.
Yeah?
Like, we toured together. I'm like, oh, wow, weird. And it's like,
Charlie's a beast.
It's like, he's a big Death Punch fan, which I was actually surprised. I'm like, really? Like, that's awesome. So that's how we started to talk about things. And turns out it was true, because I always have to ask Andy, like, hey, man, this song or that song, which record it is on? And he knows, and I don't. No, on Death Punch.
Wow.
Yeah.
The year it was going.
Right. He would know, like, which song. Yeah.
Song it is.
I'm like,
kind of weird, actually. Like, I'm probably the only one that can do that.
Right.
And you had to memorize all of that
Well,
stuff.
it's sort of been my responsibility now to make sure everyone knows what they're doing. So, when you give me the job, he's like, well, you know now that you're going to have to make sure that, like, before we go on tour or studio or whatever, that everyone knows what they're doing. So I have to whip this fucker into shape, like, before we go.
And also, that speaks to Zoe's. He's willing to, whatever you would call it, put the responsibility and share it around the group and from this project. It's not easy, though, for people to do that, because if you started something, you're really sentimental and you want to control every single detail, and to pass that stuff on around the band, that right. Says a lot.
I mean, look, there's a champion sailor in Australia who always wins this giant, world championship sailing, right? And they were asking this guy, like, you must be a really good sailor. You always win. And like, I know how to pick that team. Right. And that's important. You have to be like, this is a SWAT team, kind of. Everybody, like, you break down the door, you're the sharpshooter, everybody has a job.
Right.
Right. And so that's the spread. Who's best at what? And I think that's also important, that in a group dynamic, people do understand their strength. Like, at this point, like, as we play songs, they kind of evolve. Right, as you're playing it live, certain things change. It will be Andy like, hey, that's not how it is on the record. And we didn't even know when did it kind of, skid off from the original, right? He would be the one who knows that, right? And then everybody have their tasks, what they're good at, and I think that's what makes it strong. That everybody knows what they're good at, whose job is what, and then the other people in the band leave that alone. I'm not gonna tell Charlie what to play. He's the drummer.
Hey, broke it, don't fix it.
Right. And plus, you have to respect that everybody's here for a very specific reason with that skill set that they have. So let them do their, I'm not going to tell the drummer like, hey, the hi-hat over there. No, that's, you're here because you're that good.
Right.
And I don't have to tell you anything. And I'm not going to. I'm going to respect your skill.
Right. And so early on in the career, you guys almost pretty quickly start having big commercial success.
Right.
And for you, through your life and all of the challenges that you faced and the adversity you faced, what was that surreal moment for you when you're like, dude, this dream is starting to take off?
It is. I think it's a continuous surreal existence, right? It's basically, look, as I said, I came to America, didn't speak English. It's starting there.
Yeah.
Like for me, it was like, wow, I'm here. In a second, I could speak English. I was sitting in Barnes and Nobles because I couldn't afford books, but they let me sit there.
Wow.
And I was just reading and reading and reading all the things that I couldn't read in Hungarian because it wasn't translated, right? Even that to me was amazing. Like, oh my God, I have access to all these books that otherwise I wouldn't, So every single thing is, I think I would say that to anyone out there, actually, you kind of have to live that life, find the magic, right? And live the magic. So I don't have a definite moment of, wow, it was just a wow. And remember your miracles, right? Meaning all the things that happens and that's amazing, make a note of that, make a mental note of that and recount that. I know that Chris does this. You do your gratitude list all the time.
Every day. It's great.
Right? Every day. I and it's a sobriety thing, but anybody else too, remember your miracles. Because once you remember them and all of a sudden there's 10, then you can assume that there'll be more. Right. See what I mean? And then it's in a continuous. That's the word. Continuous. See? English is still not,
You're still great,
right.
Though. You're great.
So then it's a continuous wonder. And once you remember the first 10 and then the 20, and then it becomes natural, like, why wouldn't be another one? Right? Why wouldn't I be accomplished that?
Right.
And all of a sudden these grandiose goals that you set out, it's all like, yeah, we're going to do that. And the more you have that attitude, the more of this is going to happen. Because when you see something difficult, most people go like, oh man, that's the Himalayas. That's hard to climb. But when you keep doing this, all of a sudden it becomes natural. Oh, there's a bigger hill. Let's climb that.
Right.
Oh, there's another one. Let's climb that. And it becomes natural. And I think that's what it is. So I couldn't tell you a moment. There are a lot of these moments. Walking out on stage, there's 100,000 people. I mean, how do you feel about that? When tell him the first one.
The one time that I remember realizing, oh, this is bigger than I thought it was at that point. We were playing where the New Jersey Devils play in New Jersey, that big hockey arena. And I walked in early in the afternoon. I'm looking up at the ceiling. I'm like, my God, who booked this? This is huge. There's no way. So I pouted and went back in the dressing room. I was like, we're going to go out there and this is going to be half full. This is some bullshit. Sure enough, I didn't go out and watch the early bands or nothing. I was just like, I just want to get this over with. Walked out on stage when it was our turn, packed to the roof. I was like, that's why I play bass and I don't book shows right there, because I would not have done it that day. But yeah, that was the moment when I was like, damn, we're really doing this.
Right. What was the first track that took off for you guys that you can remember? What was the first breakout single that you had?
It was definitely The Bleeding.
Wow.
So first record, Wave the Fist, The Bleeding, and that song almost didn't make the record.
Wow.
Because I had that song in a bag for a long, long time. So I wrote that, the lyrics a long time ago. And, it's always kind of like that. When you write music, you have bits and pieces and you just keep them on the back burner. And then you wait for the moment when it's time for that. Right. And so I had that piece of music, and the first record was pretty heavy. It, wanted to make sort of a statement like, this is what we meant. We produced that record. There was no outside force involved, so to speak. And, it was kind of like at the time, almost a lost hurrah that this will be a record the way we wanted, the way we imagined, without any nobody involved, no A&R producer, nothing. This is what we want.
And this
right?
is War is the Answer?
This is the first one,
Right.
Way of the Fist, right?
Oh,
So
that's
we
right, that's right.
that record was pretty much done in my living room.
Wow.
Right? Like coffee mug and and bathrobe and let's go. And that's our platinum record today. So like literally recorded everything at home except for we went for the drums and the vocals to the studio, obviously. And that song was kind of like, well, it's a little bit lighter than everything else on the record. Should we still put on it? And we did, and that was a big difference. That was the one because it broke to radio. So it became a top 10 song on radio. And, at the time, I mean, we had those people telling us like, man, with a stupid name, like Five Finger Death Punch, not a chance. Or, various radio stations did say that, oh, this music, this
They would
heavy.
straight up tell you that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like no chance, right? And a couple of radio stations started to play it, and it was kind of a changing of a guard because once they started to play it, the song, people reacted, and then more and more radio stations started to play that song. And at the time, it was much heavier than what radio would play.
Right.
And after that, I think there was a change because after that, most of our songs became basically top 10 or number one singles. But that was a song that broke through.
How many number ones has it been? That's a lot.
15, I think.
15.
Yeah, 15 number one. And
So you guys have built up quite the discography.
So we have I think 28 top 10s.
Jeez.
So we have 28 top 10s at the moment. We have 11 consecutive number ones. So we actually hold a record with that, right? And we have 15 number one.
Wow.
singles. Yeah.
So I heard recently something that you guys had potentially sold your masters recently. Can you?
Oh, you heard
Is that
about
not?
that?
Sorry
Okay.
if I'm bringing this up and it's not.
Well, so not exactly. So in the very beginning, we had a sort of a partnership with the label. So I don't know if you remember these times when bands used to get 360 deals. That means it's a profit sharing sort of a contract. And because we produced the first record, we basically delivered like, here it is, put it out, right? And so that's the kind of deal we had. And so we co-owned our masters with the label. And I don't know how you heard about this, but I guess it's out there. So
That's what they do.
Right,
That's what we
right.
do.
So we are co-owners of the masters, and the label sold it without telling us.
Really?
Yeah. So they sold it without telling us or giving us basically the option, like we would have bought it, like why, like it's
Right.
our masters.
Acquire your own stuff.
Like at least ask me if I, So it's we found out, like I guess as you found out, and so we're thinking about the response.
Interesting. So you guys could potentially be like the metal Taylor Swift or something, and like Taylor's version.
Yeah, well, since you're saying that, I mean, nothing's off the table.
Right.
I mean, obviously that's a response, and that's not off the table. That is
Wow.
the response. We could technically do the exact same thing. We may be doing it, we may be not.
Interesting.
I don't know, but that
Wow.
would be an interesting response, wouldn't it?
Wow. Sold your masters without talking to you. That's like, I personally would be, not speaking for anybody else, but I'd be kind of pissed. I'd be a little pissed. That's like Michael Jackson, Taylor Swift.
I mean,
You gotta give the artist, they created their art. You can't just be, this ain't a stock.
I mean, it's a chess game, business life. It's always a chess game. And, I could be pissed and, hit the board, or they made their move. Now we're going to make our move.
Yeah. That's a good
It's like-
mindset. I
yeah.
love that mindset. So you had this big tour last year, and I absolutely love this lineup. You had Marilyn Manson on his comeback tour. When you get to that, Slaughter to Prevail as well. Love those dudes. It was just such a sick lineup. You guys have always had such great lineups. And one of the things I really love about you guys is you took Manson out on tour. He's been sober now for 4 years. You took a big bit of heat of that for that, but he's sober now. And talk about kind of why it was important for you guys to give him an opportunity out on the road.
Look, Manson is one of the characters who was such a big rock star, a true rock star.
Right.
It wasn't just our genre, but it was worldwide and across the board, And that's very difficult to do, especially in the day and age when sort of the idea of rock star sort of died out.
Right.
So sort of we lost that in the 90s, right? Like when Seattle and that whole, plaid shirt thing and no image kind of came in. the kids didn't look at rock bands anymore like, ooh, rock stars, I want to have that lifestyle. It didn't give them that feeling. So it's all moved to the rappers because now they got the cars, the chicks, the mansions, you know what I mean? And that was always a sort of a dream of people who, you know, live in circumstances that your parents or just your circumstances didn't afford a life or a possibility for you.
Right.
And this idea of rockstar was like, hey, if I play guitar, if I sing, if I do something on a high level, I can jump social classes and I can live a life that otherwise would never happen. That was the dream, and that's what it meant, right? And so I think it's actually unfortunate that it sort of died because rockstar wasn't a look at me. It's more like it's a hope. Right. But Manson was, you know, so that respect has to be paid that he did it, right? That's one thing. And the second is, look, we live in this world, we live in this media world, and man, sometimes I read articles that that are completely not true. Yeah. Even interviews I never give. Wow. There are data out there and things about us even that this is completely false. Right. You know, it's ridiculous in some spots. So when something is being told, I don't take it on face value. Right. None of us should. And when you're, and the justice system still works the way, thank God, that you can be accused with things, but that doesn't mean it's true. Right. And I don't know. I think all those accusations are kind of turned out to be completely, bullshit. And so we were at the stance like, look, this is a great artist. Right. They're one of the last big rock stars, right? He is completely sober and he's on the right path. And, a couple of the guys in the band share that path. So there's that. And, and because you were accused, man, we were accused time to time with the most ridiculous things that are absolutely false. So there's no judgment. Right. If it's just an accusation, there's no actual evidence and there's not even court case really. Right. And, we're not going to fall for that. And look what happened. I mean, I don't know.
Those were phenomenal shows. I mean, he was putting on some of the best performances that we've seen in recent memory. I mean, he's obviously sober. I know people who know him that have said that he's on the right path. And so kudos to you all for like putting yourselves out there and doing that because it's obvious that, he's trying to get his life together and he has. And that new album, I really enjoyed it. Right. And so it's just cool. And I'm sure it seems like, y'all interacted with him. It seems like he must have really appreciated that.
Good times, man. The band is really cool too. In fact, in some way, we interacted other ways too. Like for example, his drummer, Gil, he's a jiu-jitsu guy. So he would train with us almost every day backstage, right? I mean, we had really good times.
Love that.
So it was a great tour and it was really good to see him, man. They did awesome. And Chris Kael tried to say something, but I have the microphone.
I have the mic.
He has to wrestle me for it.
I also have patience. And just to see Reba out there on guitar, I was a huge Code Orange fan. Bro. And just to see her get that opportunity to get up there and shine as she did. Like, I'm pretty metal. Reba, she might take the cake for that.
Shout out to Reba, absolutely crushing it. And shout out to everybody in Code Orange. I love that. So we're talking about 20 years of Five Finger Death Punch. The band is showing no signs of slowing down. Crazy where you guys are at right now. How do you plan to celebrate this tremendous milestone?
Man, there's a lot on the plate. So we are talking about, not just talking about, we actually started to collect footage, obviously, some kind of a documentary, some kind of a collection of all the footage and what happened and the stories, We're thinking about doing that. More than thinking about it, as I said, we already started the process of pulling this together. I mean, man, there are hard drives everywhere. It's gonna be a lot of work, but
the ones that survived being tossed out of the window.
Yeah, man, we have some stories. I mean, look, it's like the press really didn't really know, right? I mean, this band was out of freaking control. Look, it's true story.
So you're saying it's worse than people thought it was?
Oh, way worse. Oh my God. Okay, so true story.
That's hilarious.
You think you know?
Oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, we could do just a crazy stories, right? In a cartoon style would be probably a 2-hour show. Just the absolute craziest stories. Absolutely. But look, true story, there was a moment we were out with 6 a.m., right? And Nikki, Nikki and Motley. So look, Motley Crue is basically the poster child for the debauchery and parties, right? And so imagine when Nikki Sixx is shaking his head and he's like, bro,
Forgot about this.
You guys, I mean, we did some dumb shit and, in our history, but you guys really need to step on the brakes because, God damn, imagine that. So it was absolute insanity. And, I was trying to hide it from the press and from the world as much as possible. My main function was problem solving and putting out fires 24/7. I mean, it was insanity. Absolute insanity. Like, now, the promoters all loved us because it was operating like a hockey team because anything can happen. So we have always people on the bench, right? Yeah. So all the guitar techs and the bass techs know the songs, right? Just in case.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, Chris.
Thanks, Stitch.
So there was a time when,
Yes.
man, oh my God. I mean, it was absolutely incredibly crazy. So, from that perspective, did we live the rockstar? I guess we did.
To say the least.
Yeah, I guess.
So far, we have said the least. The most is still out there to be told.
I guess we did. Andy arrived when all this crazy stuff was already kind of like just,
Thrown in at the deep end, I think.
Yeah. Right. So he arrived when this thing kind of calmed down from an 11 to like a 4.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was when he, but yeah. So it worked to put it together because it was absolutely insane. And I was, these guys called me Dad. Hide the drugs, Dad is coming.
Every band has that.
Right.
Every band has that one dude that's like the band dad trying to hold shit together.
Yeah, I could probably solve small crisis situations in various countries. I mean, at this point, it was.
You were like diplomacy.
My God, it was 24/7 of that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And when somebody had to hold the steering wheel and keep this on the tracks, right? And I think maybe it could be funny to tell these stories because some of them are absolutely out of this world. Insane.
It's like classic. I think that there really is something to be said about every band has such an extraordinary story to tell, but especially ones like y'all that have truly gone like 100% in the rock and roll world. You think of Some Kind of Monster documentary. You think of like Nickelback's documentary. I just love how real they are. So I definitely think sharing those stories and somebody's going to take it. Netflix, whoever is going to take that and the fans around the world, like as a fan of these bands watching it and seeing like the real stories that you didn't really know and hearing it from their perspective is so fascinating.
I mean, tell you the truth, it's like if you look at the story from that perspective, that's what I meant. Like it would be interesting, but I think there's another couple of different lines that why this is maybe important because at the end of the day, every single one of us sort of came from nothing with a dream. Right. And ended up living that dream. So there's that arc of every single person in the band that came from a very unlikely to succeed situation. And then here we are. So there is that element of the story. The other is the fans. Yes. Like this is not an ordinary band in a way that how the fan base is family and it's sort of a tribe. Right. Like this band is bigger than any single one of us. Or when you add up the sum total of the members, the band is still bigger, right?
Wow.
Like if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, this will continue because there is something about it. It hit a chord with a lot of people, It hit a chord with obviously our fan base from all the way from firefighters to the military guys to, there's we got accused all the time like, man, this is like some testosterone driven thing. Yeah, but yeah.
Isn't that like,
why
it's metal?
Not. And people are like, oh, you think that's like gym bro metal? Like, yeah, we all go to the gym.
What's wrong with being healthy?
This is like fight music. Well, we also fight.
Considering what you used to do?
Right.
It's called knowing your demographic.
Right. So it's like, yeah, that's what it is. That's what we are. So of course, this
as opposed to what else?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like
now everybody can do their own things, but this is what we do. This is our fan base, and there's a very specific kind of fan base that reacts to that, And I think that comes from that drive that we came from nowhere, every single one of us. Nothing was given to us, and we fought all the way. Right? We're not on a major label. We've never been.
Yep.
Everything is, we don't get tour support and any of that. This band, from the very first moment it got signed, is completely supported itself.
Yeah.
Right? They don't get big checks from that. No, everything was, That's why it's funny when people are like, oh, it's an industry-made
that's what they say about anyone who makes it.
Right.
Sleep tokens.
Yeah.
Everyone's an industry plant.
No, dude, it's like we really, blood and sweat, right?
Yep. And
And
touring
so-
relentlessly too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
200, 250 days a year.
I mean, dude,
250
that's
days
wild.
a year, man. It was crazy.
people don't realize how much y'all tour.
Now, but look at who's going to be attracted to that. That's our fan base,
Yep.
right? The go-getters, the guys that will not give up, the guys that,
Blue collar.
Right. And so that's the fan base. So that's what I meant by, showing, if you do a documentary, we're going to do a documentary. So I'm going to stop saying it.
Yeah.
Right? So doing a documentary, I think that's the story.
Yeah.
Right. That how we hit a chord with these people, the fans, like how close they are to us, right?
Yeah.
How this became like this worldwide family, and how it fulfilled every single band member's dream, how it operates, like the architecture of this band is also very different.
Right.
As I said, everybody has a task, everybody knows what they're good at, and that's how this operates. And so, it would be possibly a good example for, and yeah, there were some crazy moments that can spice up the
So I was just thinking just the other day about how far I've come from being in Kentucky, essentially dropping out of college to go chase the music dream. I am 2 generations away from coal miners
Wow.
in Kentucky. Yeah, my grandfather and my great-grandfather were both coal miners. My great-grandfather died in a mining accident back in Kentucky. So to be 2 generations away from coal mining, touring the world, seeing things that I would have never imagined seeing things that every other young Kentucky kid is hoping to see out there. I took the chances. I made calculated decisions. I put in the work, the 10,000 hours beyond, and here today at the table with other people who have also put in that same type of work and have figured out our talents and able to apply it within this thing that is Five Finger Death Punch.
Well, I want to say, guys, you have such an extraordinary story. 20 years of the band, still going strong, never been bigger. It's been amazing to see this. I'm looking forward to seeing where this is going. And hopefully, if I can just go into business for myself here, we can get Taylor's version. I think the Death Punch.
maybe. As I said,
I'm behind
everything
it 100%.
is on the table.
Yeah.
Everything is on the table. And, we're looking at the summer. This summer, we're going to have a lot of big festival we're headlining. And then, it's always been also the dream that we both appreciate huge bands that have massive production.
Yeah.
That's always been a thing, right?
Yeah.
Just building it bigger and bigger and bigger, because a concert has to be an experience.
Yes.
Right? When you can say, man, I was there. Nobody says that I seen Woodstock. Nobody
Right.
says that. You say, I was there.
Yeah.
Why you saying that?
Yep.
Right? Because you got an experience that was very unique. It wasn't just a show. So that's always been the goal. That's
Are we talking the original Woodstock or the?
I'm talking about the original Woodstock.
Yeah.
But
'Cause that was-
here's the thing. The second one also now in a history books is like, man, I was there. It was a shit show, but I was there. It's still look, it's still an event. But there are those moments in bands' lives when they can create something special. And so, we are 20 years in, but it doesn't mean that we are satisfied. It doesn't mean that we achieved what we wanted and we are here. There is still mountains to climb. I start about Metallica. Look at them.
They're not done.
They did not. Absolutely not. Right? So that means it's a long runway. And how far we are from Metallica still.
Yep.
Right? So if they still going, man, we got our runway to cover.
Well, it's been a phenomenal day. Thank you guys so much for doing this, and congratulations on all your success. I'm such a fan of your work, and I can't wait to see what comes next.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir.
Perfect.